This is all about goals, right? Check it out, guys. Goals guide, execution provides. Goals guide, execution provides. This is obviously going to be about embracing ideal challenges, hence goals, and what that looks like for us. What you see here is you see a picture. This is me. This story that I'm about to tell you is about a very specific process that I underwent, the appropriate goal choice, and I embraced an ideal challenge, and it paid dividends in my life. Um, so getting it right is important. It doesn't have to be perfectly right, but it has to be amongst a spectrum. We're searching for this sweet spot. Won't get into that in more depth, but let me tell you about this time in my life. I was fat. I had a broken arm, so I had this excuse not to do anything, not to lift weights, not to exercise, and I got fat. I was 265 pounds. My cardiovascular health was shit. And so I was, this is a picture of myself out on this porch. It was when I made the decision to start this journey of physical fitness. I was like, all right, I'm going to go outside. I didn't have a whole lot of money. And so but what I did have is time. And I could go outside and my legs worked. My arm was like somewhat healing. It was hot as hell in Florida, and I was like, man, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna start this journey to getting in better shape if it kills me. And so I didn't want it to kill me, and I chose to do 3 minutes of jumping jacks. That was my initial goal. 3 minutes of jumping jacks, and here you see me attempting this, right? And this wasn't 3 minutes straight, by the way. Very important part. It wasn't 3 minutes straight. It was like 3 minutes total, right? And I gave myself about an hour to do it. It didn't quite take that long, but I was realistic to where I was at. So then, here's another picture of me. You fast forward 9 months later, uh, you know, at this point, I'm no longer just doing jumping jacks, although I still did jumping jacks. And people like rip me apart. Like people, they're like, "Oh, you're doing jumping jacks again?" And I got to a point where I was telling people I was doing 1,000 jumping jacks, and then this asshole like he watched me and he was like, he started doing the math. He's like, "You're not doing 1,000." It drove me nuts. And so then at some point I ended up doing 1,000. But so what's the point here? The point is that I challenged myself enough that it was hard, right? And I'll tell you, when the first time I did it, I woke up the next day, I felt like I got hit by a truck. I mean, it was like my ankles hurt, my knees hurt, everything set in. I felt destroyed. But I did it. I made a decision and I did it. And this wasn't something to brag about. I wasn't posting, oh, I did 3 minutes of jumping jacks. Hey guys, look at this guy. He's killing it with 3 minutes of jumping jacks. No, it was what I was able to do, and it was still a challenge. So again, embracing the ideal challenge is the purpose. The idea of this second section is to find and embrace the ideal challenges. You don't want too small, you don't want too large. Had I tried to do 15 minutes straight of jumping jacks, I probably wouldn't have got it done. I would have felt defeated. I would have lost momentum. And I probably would have been even more sore and less likely to do it again. So I picked 3 minutes. I was super sore, but I was still able. My body was still able that I did it the following day. And so this is a very clear representation of what it looks like if you do embrace an ideal challenge and then you grow that challenge and then you keep leaning into it, and eventually, I mean, I got ripped. I got down to like 12% body fat. I was about 195 pounds. And, you know, it was a transformation. It was a transformation for certain. But had I not chosen the ideal challenge in the beginning, I could have ran into some serious problems, or not made any progress. And as you can see here, um, I'm in the same yard. It's still Florida. It's still hot as hell, even though it was 9 months later. Like you might think, oh, people that know Florida, we don't have seasons. So it's like, now this is the goal continuum. As I had mentioned before about having that sweet spot, right? You don't want to be too small without enough challenge, and you don't want to go too large and not or have so much anxiety about the goal that you're trying to accomplish that you just don't ever do shit, or you just feel like a failure and then you don't ever gain any momentum and then you just quit. um, so getting this right is tricky, and it depends on like whatever you're really aiming for. uh, you know things I believe things most goals are achievable, um, realistically. And so this continuum has a great deal of reality embedded into it, because one goal that is large for one person may not be large for another person. So this is uniquely positioned for you. So as you're examining this goal continuum, right? You have small goals and you have large goals. Now, I believe also that we're going to lean towards the smaller goals, because we want to generate some positive momentum, and that's gonna involve it's gonna involve humility, and also you know uh, wanting to get some wins quickly, right? Some iterations quickly, so we can start that momentum and then grow exponentially, right? You start to win quickly, and then you grow exponentially, and so this is where we're headed. Now, in the goal continuum, there are some pitfalls. I had mentioned that you don't want to be too far to one side or the other. Um, Here we have large goals, right? What are some pitfalls here? Anxiety. If a goal is too looming, too difficult, you're going to be haunted by that goal. And then many times, I think in most cases, people just become so like, oh God, they worry about the when you worry about the goal because it's so large, you just won't get anywhere. Right. And so we need to get somewhere. And so what happens if a goal is too small? Okay, so if a goal is too small, right, you become uninterested. If you're not challenged enough, you just fizzle out because you don't have any real driver to keep running it back. So now this is an easier fix. This is an easier fix because you can just shoot a little higher. And then, if you do that quickly, the challenge will increase, and you can do that pretty easily in most cases. For instance, with the physical exercise, progressive overload is a real thing. Progressive overload, it's like, say, in the instance me doing jumping jacks, I'm doing jumping jacks for 3 minutes. I increased that to 6 minutes. I increased that to 15 minutes. I took a small goal and I grew it into a larger goal. And that's what it's going to look like, right? Successfully, to get this done, that's what it's going to look like. Is we're going to kind of choose on the smaller side and grow it. That's much better than just choosing too large and then getting all haunted and then trying to shrink it down to something achievable. It could be done that way, but we want to expedite this process. We want to make this process faster, and it can become faster by choosing on the smaller side. But you don't want to get too small with this because, like I said, you're not challenged enough. You don't learn enough from each win, right? So if you're not learning a lot, there's a lot of lessons. Um, I use the word lessons instead of losses, but there's a lot of lessons when you're shooting for goals and you're attempting and you're reiterating your attempts. Um, and so another element of small goals being kind of a detriment to what we're shooting for here is that it has less intrinsic value. There's not as much pride. In the case of my jumping jacks, there wasn't a whole lot of pride in my 3 minutes of jumping jacks. Uh, I did some soul searching, and I knew realistically that's where I was at. However, I wasn't bragging. It wasn't something that I could just bring up like, oh yeah, I did this the other day, and either people aren't going to listen or they're unimpressed. So those are some pitfalls to the smaller goals side of the spectrum. Um, Now, this diagram here on the left, you have a massive goal, you have kind of a sweet spot goal, and then you have a goal that's too small, right? Now, where we want to be is on the lower portion here of this depiction of iterations and goals, and either getting lessons or wins. You can see the person at the top there, the goal is too large. They never do anything. That's it. They never get off the ground. Nothing ever happens. And so clearly that is not where we want to be. The second person here on this totem pole, they go too small. They get a quick win, but they're not challenged. There's no intrinsic value. They're not motivated to do it again. So a good deal of time passes by. Then they do it again. And okay, now they've got 2 wins under their belt, but they're moving slower, right? They're moving at a slower pace. That's not us. That's not what we want, right? We want to be moving impatient progress, right? Impatient progress. So we've got the third person here. This third person, again, their circumstances is they're moving too slow, and right, they take too long to make their first attempt for whatever reason, and then they fail, right? And so then they do it again, but they get a win, and again, it's the lack of the appropriate choice. Had they chosen the appropriate sized goal, they would have already gotten an iteration in. But too much time has passed, and then when they finally do make a decision to do anything, the first iteration could be a loss. They're they're behind here. So where do we want to be? We want to be at that next person that's got that sweet spot goal. And they make the first attempt and say they get a lesson from that. You can see here, it's represented by the red X. They get a lesson and they're like, oh, okay. But it didn't destroy them. The lesson it didn't tear them to pieces because they chose the appropriate goal. And now they're like, okay, they've learned a little bit, and then they run it back, right? Again, choosing the appropriate size goal, and now they've got to win 2 iterations under their belt. The third one, they get another lesson, right? They choose the appropriate size goal. Now they've got to win, right? So these iterations, right, as you can see, this is going to stack in a much more rapid rate what we would consider the end goal or mastery, or however we're going to get to the place that we want to be by choosing the appropriate size goal, and it's represented here by that last person on this diagram. And so a portion of our biological system that is key to goal orientation and direction movement in our lives is the reticular activating system. It's in our spine, the RAS. It is what we choose to pay attention to and not pay attention to. Like, for instance, your vision and sight, like you pick up on certain things that are important to you. This portion of your body decides what's important to you. If you notice, like if you're driving your car to work, you've done it 1,000 times or whatever, however many times, you stop paying attention. The reticular activating system is no longer deeming what's being inputted into your brain as important. It's kind of autopilot, right? And so it also chooses what we put our efforts into and then prioritize. And this is so important because it's like a magical system in our minds when we're fleshing out all of these ideas about our excitement and the purpose audit, and then appropriate goal choices. This system kicks into gear and it starts working in our favor once we've got goals in place, appropriate goals. It will choose all the surrounding priorities to get that goal done. It's such a wild portion of our mind, and it's a very old system in our bodies. It's a very old system, and so it's what builds in the focus, but it starts with a goal choice in a decision, and then everything around your perceptions, it will all start to shift. It all starts to funnel in. The RAS system funnels in your perceptions and attention and intention into the chosen goal. This is why this goal, the appropriate goal choice and the ideal challenge choice is so important to this program. Now, it's time to take action. And we're going to do this with the 50 goals method. It's an older method that I've used myself. Um, I've only done it once, but it's so powerful. It's so powerful. It was created by Brian Tracy, or at least that's where I got the idea. This is where we're going to put boots to ground, and this will gain so much insight and clarity as to your goal sets, your goal choices, what makes sense to you in different time frames, and this is how you get it done. You're going to choose 50 goals. That sounds simple enough, and I thought it was simple too. I started writing down 50 goals, and let me tell you, it started to get really difficult, right? I started to fight, very simple goals like, oh, I want to make X amount of dollars a year. I want to have a house here. I want to have X number of children. I want to, you know, so I started here at these like very easy, low hanging fruit goals. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. And that makes sense. And by the time I got to like 25, 30 goals, I'm like, oh my God. And I started trying to really dig deep as to like what I cared about and what I wanted to aim for. And so as you're writing out these 50 goals, and the difficulty will set in, I promise that it will set in. And then you start to, I like, for instance, one of my goals I came up with was like, I no longer want to clean toilets. Like later in my life, like I just don't want to be dealing with like cleaning my own toilets or any toilets for that matter. And I've cleaned a lot of toilets. I'm not above that, but if I had a goal, I would like to not do that. That's all. And whoever is doing it, I intend on compensating. I don't I don't like it's not like if somebody's doing that for me, that is a very valuable task. I will make sure that it is a fair deal. But it's not something I want to do, so it's on my list. And so I'm going through all of these goals, and I'm choosing these different buckets to put my energy into, and then the RAS kicks into play, and it starts to steer you toward these things. Now, as you're writing these goals out, I want you to, speaking of buckets, I want you to put them into 3 buckets, and they're according to time frames on when you intend on these things to happen. We've got a 1 month set of goals. We've got a 1 year set of goals. And then we've got a 5 year set of goals. As you're moving through this exercise and you're writing these goals down, some of them will naturally fall into place. You write something down and you think, okay, well, I could get that done in a month. And as the exercise played out for myself, when I got done, it seemed almost like evenly placed, somewhat evenly. Now, this is another opportunity to gain insight as to where your attention is at, meaning your scope of time and how far you're thinking into the future. If all of your goals seem to all be in the 1 month period of time, you might want to try to think into the future further along. And now, if the majority of your goals are into the 5 year bucket of time, you might be a little too meta. You might be a little too high level in your thinking, and you're gonna have to incorporate some process goals in the near future to get to the 5 year goals, right? Like you're not gonna get to X amount of an absurd amount of income without, doing some work in the near future to get to that point in time. So, as it fleshes out, there's going to be so many goals. You're going to gain clarity. You're going to see some very glaring, obvious parts about what you intend to do, where you intend to be, and so it's a powerful exercise. And just really writing these out, I'm excited for you because I know I still have mine. I put them on Post-it notes, colored for each set of time, and at one point I had them on the wall. So valuable to see these on a regular basis. It keeps you in line. It keeps the RAS, the reticular activating system, activated. That's biologically in your body, and it's a goal choosing machine. Yeah, so this exercise, once done, put it somewhere where you can see it. Put your 50 goals up so it can remind you of where you want to be. And so, say it one more time, guys, to just hammer it home a little bit here. Goals guide, execution provides. Right? Goals guide, execution provides. Doing the thing, right, is important. And you won't do the thing if you don't have a clear and appropriate vision for yourself. If it's, again, like I said, if you're off base realistically of where you're at and what you want, there's going to be a discrepancy. Nothing will happen. So it's so important to conjoin both the vision and the action. And by implementing this goal method and paying attention to this continuum, it's going to make your chances of achieving so much higher. Goals guide, execution provides. I'll see you guys on the